Hello, welcome back. My name is Daniel Gormani. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I wanted to talk about an article that I read. This guy called Phil Welsh pointing me to his article. I think I'd also noticed that it was on Chess Reddit. So Chess Reddit is really the site for a lot of controversial subjects in chess. People like to discuss stuff. And so this article talks about whether chess players wonder if being a grandmaster still has meaning. And the point of the article is really talk about the number of grandmasters that there are. Now, I believe that the Chess Grandmaster title was created in 1948. And this would have coincided with the World Championship, which took place, I believe, in the Netherlands and was won by a World Championship tournament, candidates tournament, that decided because the previous world champion Alekhine had died in a hotel room in Portugal. Basically the world title was vacated, and Botvinnik really started a period of Soviet dominance in the World Chess Championships. So he was one of the first people to be awarded the Grandmaster title. Later on, in the 1970s, Arpad Elo from, I believe he was a mathematician from Hungary, created a very clever rating system, the Elo rating system, which was exclusively used in chess. And the first 2700 player was Bobby Fischer, who got to 2785. Incredible rating. He was way ahead of the pack. So just to give you an illustration, several players who obviously became Grandmaster around about that sort of period in the 1970s, like Viktor Korchnoi, Jan Tim, and Boris Spassky was also world champion, they never got even past 2700. So Bobby Fischer's 2785 was a Bob Beamon-like jump. So does someone like Bobby Fischer deserve to be ranked as a Grandmaster with someone like Michael Steen? But back in that period, there were far less GMs than there are now. So over time, which this article tries to allude to, is that there are too many GMs. So he talks about Bellini. He also talks about interviewing Nigel Short. Now, Nigel Short is the director for chess development of the Federation, the game's governing body, who is himself a Grandmaster. I played against Nigel Short in the I believe it was the European Union Championships in 2008 in Liverpool, and I lost the black side of a some kind of. Well, he just got an advantage out of the opening and a slight advantage in the end game, and I wasn't good enough to hold it. And the thing was that one of the things I noticed when we analysed the game briefly afterwards was that Nigel was much better at identifying candidate moves. So he did his calculation. He didn't calculate that much. It was just more discerning, right? So it was more like, and he'd see more candidate moves. So that was something that stood out to me. But Nigel was somebody who really studied chess very deeply when he was younger. He was really like obsessional about chess at a young age, and I think more to the degree that I was. So whether I would have achieved that level if I'd have been that obsessive, I don't know, but I probably would have become stronger. I might have got to 2600, maybe low 2600s, and therefore potentially have been a super GM. However, I'm nowhere near that level now. I'm now 24, 21 and declining. I think this is the point that Nigel's trying to make, is that there's too many GMs and there's a huge difference between myself. I'm 24, 21. Someone like Arjun Uragazzi, who's improving all the time and now is 2780 or something, whatever he is on the live list. He's over 300 points above me. It's a massive difference. So if he's 360 points above me, that's the same difference as between myself. Let's go 360 points down to 2000. Well, how good is my maths? So it was 420, take away 360. 2080 maybe, right? No, 2060. I'm not sure actually. My maths is so. I think it's 2060 rating. Now, no disrespect to 2060 rating, but I don't consider them particularly strong players. And I'm sure that Arjun Eragazzi doesn't consider me a particularly strong player. So to be fair, there is a point in what he's trying to say. However, I would say, what are you going to do about it? I mean, what are you actually going to do to change it? Are you going to give... So Nigel, in this article, I don't think he says that he particularly wants to create a new title. If you create a new title of Super Grandmaster, where does that leave everybody? If you become, if you say, well, anybody sort of 2750 plus is a Super GM, what happens if there's like a rating inflation? There's too many Super GMs. What do you do then? You have to create another title. So you keep sort of like kicking the ball down the line. So or kicking the can down the road, I should say. So this is the issue. In my opinion, what Caruana says in this article is very close to the truth. So Caruana, at some point, he says, the fact that Mr. Carlsen and a player like Mr. Agard, so he's talking about Jacob Agard, who's a chess coach and a grandmaster originally from Denmark, has spent some time in Scotland, and he's a very active player, active person in terms of chess publishing community, and also runs a Chess Killer website. So he's obviously somebody who's done a lot for chess, but he's never been a top player. I played against Jacob. He's a nice guy, but he's not probably stronger than me, actually, to be honest. He's been British champion in the past. He won the British Championship in 2007, I believe, and it was in Great Yarmouth. And he said, our both grandmasters can be confusing. He said Fabio Caruana, 31, a three-time US champion, currently ranked number 2 in the world with a rating of 28.05. He added that he thought ratings were sufficient for distinguishing amongst players' ability and regarded grandmaster titles as kind of a lifetime achievement recognition awards. I agree with that. Also, what Emil Sutovsky says, he said that he was ranked as high as number 7. I played against Emil Sutovsky. Funny enough, probably one of the best games ever played, if not, possibly, arguably even the best game ever played. If you ever look at that game, it's a phenomenal game. I was on the losing side because Emil was a very creative player. And he's now tumbled down the rating list, but he's very active in FIDE. Admitted that he once shared Mr. Short's view. I thought it was a bit unfair that I belonged to the same category as players who were much weaker than me, he said, but he has changed his mind. Yeah, so these players are significantly stronger than me, other than possibly Jacob Agard. All these players named are significantly stronger. However, should you scrap the title, what should you do? Should you raise the bar? Should you say that anyone below 2,500 automatically loses the title? I came up with a novel way to solve this, and I said, anyone who becomes a new GM, right, this is my proposal going forward. Anyone who becomes a new GM, an older GM who's ranked below 2,500 automatically loses their title. So that would motivate the older GMs to keep working on their game rather than sitting there as, with a lifetime recognition award. You're essentially forced to kind of work really hard to keep your title. If you don't keep your title, you're not strong enough. You don't deserve to get your title. Where I kind of agree with a lot of the sentiment is, I think, where it harms people. Now, I think really what Short is saying is an ego thing. It's essentially he doesn't feel that it's right to be ranked as someone, low rank like myself, with the same title. But where I would say is harming players is if you've got to say a 2480 or 2490 IM and they're not getting any conditions, and a GM player who's ranked, say, myself, for example, 2420, or someone ranked even lower, is getting conditions, to me that's wrong. I think that shouldn't be the case. You're going off tournaments that happened maybe 20 years ago. Yes, I achieved a title. It was a really hard struggle for me to achieve the title. I managed to do it. That was a great achievement. But I don't think you should be ranked on something that happened 20 years ago. So that is where I would agree with. I think this is where I think the conditions should be handed out more on what your rating is. So I think this is where I would really agree with the sentiment of this article. It's quite an interesting article, and yeah, so basically, interested to know what your thoughts. Please leave your thoughts and comments down below. But going forward, what I would actually do, so I'd either create this rule where a new GM or new IM, the older IM or the weaker GM would lose their title. As soon as you like a new one, you'd have to get rid of it like one of the old ones. Or you could create a system whereby you just scrap all the titles. Basically, that would remove a lot of the confusion. In my opinion, the FIDE rating list is accurate enough. This would remove a lot of the arguments, and it would also mean that people would be judged more on their rating. So you would get conditions based on your rating, not your title. And I think that's a fairer way of doing it. I think that's the fairest way. Or my more radical idea of removing GMs. Rather than saying up the level and say, well, someone has to be 2600 or 2650 plus to get the title. The problem you do then, if the rating list suddenly becomes inflated further down the line, there'll be too many GMs anyway, and again that would lose its kind of, because every GM title has its kind of value, right? If there's too many GMs, if you create a piece of coin, and that's the only piece of coin in the world, that piece of coin is very precious. When you got 1800 pieces of coin, like 1800 GMs, that piece of coin is a lot less precious. People don't care about it, right? You know, it's still important. What somebody said on Twitter, they said there are more billionaires in the world than there are grandmasters. This article is a joke. So yeah, that's true in a way that there are very few GMs. There's very few GMs in this country. Just in England, there's 30 odd GMs. I keep saying to the kids at local chess club that I teach, I want you to become the first people in ANIC to become like a master level player. But if you then say to them, well, actually, you're not going to become a master level player because they've changed the rules and it's even harder, well, then that might be a little bit hard for them to understand. But yeah, as far as the GM title is concerned, it's an interesting debate. I mean, one thing I've noticed recently, because of the deflation and rating system, it's harder than ever actually to become a GM, ironically. That was seen younger players who are very good players. I mentioned this yesterday. I said it, like in England, there's a number of international master players. I won't name names specifically, who are trying to become GM players who are struggling. And I don't think it's right that they're ranked below me. I don't think that's correct. They should have the same ranking as me because they're as good as me. Right, and they're as good as other players who have a higher ranking. I don't agree with that. So there should be a way to rectify it. The reason they're struggling to become a GM is because all the deflation of the system. They're playing in opens, so they might be 21, 22, 23 years of age. They're playing against even people even younger than they are, playing against 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds, who are often very underrated. So therefore, they're playing 2 or 3 of these players per tournament. When I became a GM back in mid-2000s, effectively I did it in a very short period. In about a sort of... what I mean is... sorry, I didn't do it in a very short period, but... Well, in a number of years, like probably 2002 to 2005, that's where I got my title. Or maybe it was 2000 to 2005, I can't remember. But... the point I would make is that a lot of the players that I beat along that way, I beat Drev, he was a little bit older than I was. I played against Haracek, was one of the people that I beat. I played against Miazes, I played against Gurovic. These were all older players. I didn't have to face every single round kids who were born 13, 14-year-olds. And I had a bad record against kids from an early age. You know, I didn't have a good record against juniors. I hated playing juniors who were like fearless, cocky, you know, it just triggered me immensely. So I was very lucky that I was playing in a period where I was able to get the GM title because there weren't so many kids. So anyway, that's the whole point of the article. I'm interested to see what people say about, people think about this article. Do they agree that maybe the bar needs to be raised? Maybe there needs to be some separation between a weak grandmaster like myself and a strong grandmaster like a Nigel Shaw or a Sotowski or a Magnus Carlsen. So please leave your comments down below.